Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into one of the most famous and, honestly, one of the most hauntingly beautiful poems in the English language, Because I Could Not Stop for Death, by the one and only Emily Dickinson.
So, get this. This is the wild idea Emily Dickinson wants us to think about from the very first line. Forget about the grim reaper with the big, scary scythe. She's asking us to imagine death as, well, a polite guy showing up in a horse-drawn carriage.
Okay, let's get into this first part of the journey, where we meet our guide. And let me tell you, he is not what you'd expect. This isn't some violent abduction. It's more like a formal appointment. Right from the jump, the poem flips our biggest fears upside down. Our speaker, she was just too busy with life, Too much to do to stop for death. So what does death do? He kindly stops for her. There's no fight, no struggle, just a calm, courteous invitation to take a ride. The main tool Dickinson is using here, and it's absolutely brilliant, is personification. She takes this huge, scary, abstract concept of death and turns him into a character in a story. It's this move that makes the whole impossible journey feel so real, so personal, and, weirdly enough, so calm.
And check out who else is on this ride. The carriage holds just ourselves and immortality. Whoa. So it's not just the speaker and death having a quiet drive. There's a third passenger, this mysterious figure of immortality. That immediately tells you this whole trip isn't just about an ending, right? It's about what comes after.
And this just perfectly sets the mood. You'd think a ride with death would be frantic and terrifying, but no. It's completely unhurried. The speaker puts away her work and her free time, basically everything that made up her life, for this slow, steady journey. The pace is so peaceful, which is just the total opposite of how we usually picture death. So now, this carriage ride starts to become something else. It turns into a tour of the speaker's entire life, almost like she's watching home movies of her past, right from the back seat. As they're driving along, she sees these powerful symbols of her life go by. First up, a school with kids playing. That's her childhood. Then they pass fields of grain all ripe and ready for harvest. That's her adulthood, her years of maturity. And finally, the setting sun, which, is the classic metaphor for the end of life. But just as you're getting comfortable with this kind of peaceful memory lane road trip, bam! Dickinson hits us with a sudden, dramatic shift. The whole mood changes, and this cold, hard reality starts to sink in. This one little line, it's the turning point of the whole poem. The speaker actually corrects herself. She says, "We didn't pass the sun, no, the sun passed us." And with that simple correction, they have left the normal living world behind. They're on a different timeline now. And you can almost feel the temperature drop, right? The warmth of the sun is gone, and now there's this cold, shivering dampness in the air. The speaker suddenly realizes what she's wearing. It's not a warm coat. It's a super thin gown made of gossamer and tulle. These are basically burial clothes, not meant for a chilly evening ride. The physical reality of death is hitting her. Finally, the carriage pauses in front of a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. Dickinson uses this incredible, subtle metaphor here. This is no ordinary house. It's a grave, with its roof just barely sticking out of the dirt. So, this very polite carriage ride, this trip through all her memories, it's led to a very real, very physical place, her own grave. You think that's the end of the story, right? But the poem doesn't stop here. All right, you're going to want to hang on for this part because it gets seriously mind-bending. The very last stanza just completely explodes our perspective and gives us a peek at what time looks like from the other side. She hits us with this absolute bombshell. She tells us that centuries have gone by since that day she took a ride with death. I mean, what? She's been telling us this story from a place hundreds and hundreds of years in the future. And here's the craziest part. To her, all those centuries feel shorter than the single day she just spent describing to us. Think about that for a second. In this state of eternity, our whole idea of time just breaks. It doesn't mean anything anymore. And that's her final aha moment. She realizes the horses weren't just taking her to the grave. The grave was just a pause. The whole time the horses were pointed toward eternity. The journey is still going. And that's the big question she leaves us with. She doesn't give us a neat little answer all tied up in a bow. Instead, she just opens the door to this huge idea. Maybe death isn't a final stop. Maybe it's just a transition, a carriage ride into a whole different way of being, where the journey never ever ends.